So recently, PBS Kids announced that next month they'll be airing their first ever cartoon starring an explicitly autistic main character called Carl the Collector, starring an autistic raccoon named Carl who likes collecting things in jars and struggles with anxiety and social situations, just like many people on the spectrum. In the past 5 years or so, children's television has been introducing more and more autistic characters into their stories, which to me is really nice to see, since as a child there weren't really any explicitly autistic characters in media at all for me, and there were only a handful of autistic coded characters out there. But now society has progressed to the point where there's enough awareness out there about neurodivergency and mental health to allow for explicitly stated autistic characters to show up in kids' media. This is a really great thing in my opinion, since it allows both neurodivergent and neurotypical kids growing up today to get a good representation of autism on television for them, and this is really helped by the fact a lot of these characters are actually written by real autistic people. So today I want to take a look at a few of these characters that I think are exceptional and discuss what makes them such great representations. Before we begin, be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers, we're currently aiming for that right now. So if you haven't subscribed already, definitely do so. And leave a comment down below too. But anyway, on to today's video. One of the first most notable autistic characters that have been introduced into a children's show is Julia from Sesame Street. Julia was introduced to the show in 2017 as the show's first ever autistic Muppet. Sesame Street as a show has always been about teaching children good values about life, society, basic education, and other things, so it was only a matter of time before the show tackled this too. Honestly, I think they've done a very good job with a character like Julia. Much like all the best autistic reps, Julia isn't singled out as an autistic character or a member of the cast or treated differently just because she has autism. She's treated just the same as any of the other Muppets and everyone accepts her as part of the cast, which is exactly what you want to do when writing a character like this on children's television. She is definitely one of the best examples, and I'm really glad Sesame Workshop has kept her in the cast as long as they have. The second example of a really good autistic character in children's media from like the last 5 years or so is Loop, a short from Disney and Pixar that I actually wasn't aware of until somebody told me about it during the production of this video. The short is about a non-verbal autistic girl being paired as a canoe partner with a neurotypical boy who's actually very chatty. The short starts with the girl, whose name is Renee, already being in the canoe, and the boy, Marcus, coming in after they set off on their canoeing journey. This might seem like a small touch, but I actually really like this about that short. In the short, Marcus isn't portrayed as a hero or noble for choosing to go with Renee, since Renee already is in the boat, ready to go. This might seem small, but think about it this way. If Marcus was the one already waiting in the boat and Renee was just introduced to him by the canoeing coach, that would actually give the short a very different tone and a very different perspective on Renee as a character. So I think it's very smart on Pixar's part to have taken the approach of Renee already being in the canoe, and thus Marcus just comes along and gets in with her. Because of this and just how this short functions overall, they're sort of just seen as equals, and Renee isn't singled out and neither is Marcus. They're both just seen as regular kids, and that's really nice. And again, it's what you want to do when creating a good autistic rep and any kind of good autistic representative media overall. The short is about Renee and Marcus learning how to communicate with one another, since naturally Marcus, being neurotypical, is very chatty, and Renee, being a nonverbal autistic, uses her phone and other things to communicate with him. And by the end, they do figure out how to communicate with one another and have a great time in their canoeing journey. It's a very simple premise, but it really works, and it's really powerful and effective. I highly recommend checking out this one if you have not already. The third example that I want to discuss here is, again, another show that I wasn't aware of because this is a newer kids show, but it also has a very good autistic rep from what I've seen and what I've been recommended. I'm talking about Hero Elementary, and specifically the character of AJ Gadgets on that show. From what I have gathered and what I've seen, Hero Elementary is a newer PBS kids show that is about 4 diverse different kid superheroes who all have different superpowers. One of them is AJ Gadgets, who can project his thoughts for others to see, and he often saves the day with like MacGyver type contraptions. And interestingly enough, he is explicitly stated to be autistic, like they actually say this on the show. This is so cool for me to see because as a kid, I never would have seen a character that is explicitly stated to be autistic. But so many kids shows now are doing that, and honestly, it makes me really happy. Today's kids really deserve to grow up with stuff like this, so I'm so glad it's so much more common, especially on like educational networks like PBS Kids. It's really nice to see that it's just more discussed in general in media now. Once again, AJ himself is explicitly said to be autistic, and he shows many signs of this in general, like hearing loud noises and getting overwhelmed, which is something I relate to a lot. Definitely different textures he does not like wet clothes, and he does flap his hands around when he's distressed or anxious. One of the nicest things about this, though, once again, is that this is not treated like something that makes him different from anyone else, or something that makes him need to be ostracized from others. Everyone here treats him just like a normal person, and it's really nice and really cool to see this discussed in a kid show like this. Again, I am just really glad that more kid shows are talking about this in general. And here, AJ is just one of the other kids, and they all accept him for that, and that's really beautiful. Now, to close out this video, I want to give my thoughts on Carl the Collector, since this show is technically not out yet, but it releases next month on PBS Kids. As stated before, Carl the Collector is PBS Kids' first show with an explicitly autistic main character, and it's really cool to see that too. Carl himself is an anxious raccoon that likes collecting things for other people in his neighborhood. From what I have seen, the tone seems very sweet, and Carl seems like a very sweet character, along with all the other characters in his neighborhood. One of the coolest things about this particular project, though, to me, is that it actually features both a mix of neurodivergent and neurotypical writers, which is perfect because this show features both neurodivergent and neurotypical characters. In addition to this, much like with Julie on Sesame Street, the creators of this show actually specifically talked to Dr. Stephen Shore, an autistic professor of special education at Adelphi University, when making the show and figuring out how to write Carl and all the other characters that are neurodivergent in the show as well, and making sure the right stories are told. It honestly looks like a very promising representation, and I'm very glad this show will be coming out on PBS Kids for kids all over to watch this November from what I've gathered. In the end, I'm just really glad more shows like this are appearing pretty consistently now on children's television. Like I said before, there weren't really any autistic characters, at least not explicitly stated, in the media I watched as a kid, and there weren't that many autistic coded characters either. So seeing like two major PBS Kids shows have blatantly explicitly stated autistic characters in them is really cool, and kind of surreal for me to see, but it's just a really nice thing. I really hope we see more of this in the future, and it continues to keep happening. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. If you want to check out all my socials down below, you can see all those down there. And if you want to join my Discord too, where you can communicate with me and others offline, that should be linked down below. And if you want to check out my Letterboxd, that is linked down below as well. That's where I review movies, oftentimes movies or shows I won't review here on YouTube, so you can check that out too if you want extra content from me. But for now, I've been Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the Otter side. Bye!